this event is an annual event, and it has come about for well over 10 years as the result of a man that I have just thought so highly of that passed away a few years ago. How many of you in this room know Billy Suddderth? He was a fantastic person, and every time it got close to this time of year, I would hear him come in. Our center's on 2 levels, and the echo just comes straight up, you know, and I'd hear him say, "Is Miss Rose here? It's that time." And it just tickled me so. But the main point I wanted to make about this is this actual National Women's History Day celebration was started by a man. A man. And I think that's very important for us to know. He took it to the Friends of the Ridgeview Library, and at this moment I would like to recognize the Friends of the Library by asking them to stand. Friends of the Library, there's a lot of you, so please stand. Yes. So Women's Resource Center became part of it a few years after it was begun. And it's been my privilege to be involved in it. A couple of other people we want to recognize. I would like the committee that worked directly with me in planning this to stand, please. We have Louise, Miriam Rod, and Cosette Sinclair. Louise Jones got the picture. And I want to thank them. We've worked together, Cosette and Louise and I, for several years. Marion joined our group this year for the International Flair. A lot of you know her from the Hickory International Council. She was on it for a long time. We won't tell how long, Marion. But part of this celebration is about diversity. Tomorrow is International Women's Day. So the two kind of joined together in the early 80s. The first proclamation of National Women's History Month was done in 1980 by President Jimmy Carter. So, that's a good thing to know. A couple of other things. I do want to recognize Hannah Norcutt. Hannah, where are you? Back at the back. Hannah works at the Ridgeview Library, and so a lot of the beautiful program and the flyers and things you've seen, she is the person that created that, because I don't have the time. We also have, I know at least one dignitary present, and that is our mayor, Hank Gass. Hank, yes, Hank's with us, and we're proud to have him with us. Are there anybody else here that, besides one of our honorees? Charlotte Williams, of course, is on the Hickory City Council and one of our honorees, so let's give her a hand too. I want to thank David from the Hickory Daily Record for being here with us. Thank you. And if I would like any previous honorees from previous years that are with us to please stand. Anita? Yes, there we go. So these women have continued to support us. To give you a little background, why women's history? Why is that important? Because history helps us learn who we are. How many of us women in this room remember when we were in elementary school and you read history books? There was very seldom anything about a woman in there. You know, it was like we didn't exist, and we did. So, when we don't know our own history, our power and dreams are immediately diminished. Multicultural American women are overlooked in most mainstream approaches to U.S. history. So the National Women's History Project champions their accomplishments and leads the drive to write women back into history. That's where we belong. Recognizing the achievements of women in all facets of life, science, community, government, literature, arts, sports, medicine, has a huge impact on the development of self-respect and new opportunities for girls and young women. We no longer want to tell them your only choice is to get married and start a family or to be a nurse. You know, those are great professions to aspire to, but we need to be telling our girls, you can be anything you want to be. I think that's important. So let me tell you a little bit about this year's theme before we start our honorees. The theme for this year, for the National Women's History Month 2019, is Visionary Women, Champions of Peace and Nonviolence. The theme for 2019 is Visionary Women, Champions of Peace and Nonviolence. This year, we honor women who have led efforts to end war, violence, and injustice, and pioneered the use of nonviolence to change society. These honorees embrace the fact that the means determine the ends, and so developed nonviolent methods to ensure just and peaceful results. For generations, women have resolved conflicts in their homes, schools, and communities. They have rejected violence as counterproductive and stressed the need to restore respect, establish justice, and reduce the causes of conflict as the surest way to peace. From legal defense and public education to direct action in civil disobedience, women have expanded the American tradition of using inclusive, democratic, and active means to reduce violence, achieve peace, and promote the common good. From women's rights and racial justice to disarmament and gun control, the drive for nonviolent change has been championed by visionary women. These women consciously built supportive, nonviolent alternatives and loving communities, as well as advocating change. They have given voice to the underrepresented and hope to victims of violence and those who dream of a peaceful world. This is our theme for 2019. At this time, after I've given you a little bit of information, I would like to call Juanita Dula to the front to introduce our guest speaker. His personal friend, and we're so happy to have her with us. It's easier to hold this one.
This is a great opportunity for me. Dr. Virginia Wright, who we call Jenny, was born and raised in Pittsburgh until the age of 16 when she moved to Virginia and finished high school. She graduated from Shaw with a Bachelor in Science, and then she finished medical school at Howard. She trained in internal medicine at Mercer in Georgia and did a fellowship investor at Duke University. Now she is associate minister at Mount Zion Baptist Church and working on her master's in divinity in Regis University while practicing at Frye and for Carolina Care and teachers at Lenore Ryan. She is a proud member of the Delta Signal Society Incorporated and an Action Community member serving on various boards here in Hickory. I introduce it to some and present to others, Dr. Virginia Wright.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm glad that the reception is later, so you all are going to stay awake for these 10 minutes. I tell you, I call Miss Dula Aunt Juanita, and she told me a couple of times, I got 10 minutes. So we're going to see. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for this opportunity to come and speak with you and just share a little bit about some of my champions And as far as that introduction, of course, God gets all glory. Okay, I love when people say, what have you done? And I think I haven't done anything. He's done it all through me. So I have to give him glory. Just a couple of interesting facts about champions of peace and nonviolence that I've seen firsthand in my life. So God has allowed me to witness the strength and purpose of so many of us who actually sit in this room. I have found out while living in Hickory that we really don't have to travel far to find champions. I thought about the many women who made a difference concerning efforts to end war, efforts to end violence, efforts to end injustice through nonviolent methods to change society worldwide. So I thought about speaking on Wangari Maathai, who made a change in Kenya. I thought about Queen Nzing Mbandu, who provided a sanctuary for slaves in Angola. I thought about Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the first female president in Africa and one who was against corruption. I thought about Huda Shirawi, and she was an Egyptian feminist and revolutionist. Rosa Parks, here in our history, standing up, or rather sitting down for equality. I thought about a lot of leaders. Winona LaDuke, activist for Native Americans. Shirley Chisholm, the first African-American woman that sat in Congress, and the first African-American to actually seek nomination for president. And she's also my sorority sister, so I had to give her honor for Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So there were so many to choose from, and I thought, well, who am I going to speak about tonight? And that's when I realized I don't have to travel that far. I don't have to travel that far in history. I don't have to travel that far in geography to unveil our champions. I would be remiss if I didn't give honor to my mother. She's one of my champions. You know, in high school, sometimes we have moments with our teachers, and I'm not anti-teacher because my dad was a principal, but one such teacher didn't really care for me much, and my mother was kind enough to come and have a conversation with her. And so I thank God that she stood up for me. She was one of my champions. And then there were naysayers who said, she's not going to be a doctor. She's working retail. I was selling sports paraphernalia and sitting out of school. And someone said, she's not going to be a doctor. And I overheard the conversation and overheard my mother's fight. And that gave me that push that I needed to move on. We don't really have to travel far. I have to make mention of my grandmother, who I'm named after. She actually helped to put the rivets in the bridges while the men were off to war during World War II. She was a Red Cross volunteer, and we know that that same organization was founded by Clara Barton, right? And so that's why I keep saying we really don't have to travel that far. My other grandmother, who was a breast cancer survivor, widowed twice, 2 strokes, and then calmed down at the age of 92 to leave here. We really don't have to travel that far. So I thank God for them, but I also thank God for the women who are in my life now. The brave, bold, fearless women who I have adopted as my aunties. Those women who have made a way for me to be where and who I am today. Because I think we often forget about the foot imprints that we leave on the shoulders of those who traveled before us. These are the women in my life today who have embraced me and pushed me. They have encouraged me and at times even corrected me. I guess you're never too old for correction. That's the strength of community, because it was all done in the spirit of love. I know the strength of these women, and I know it personally because I know their love. And what I have found in recognizing that love is patient and love is kind, love is not jealous, it's not boastful, it's not proud, it's not rude. It doesn't demand its own way. Love is not irritable. It keeps no record of being wronged. It doesn't rejoice about injustice, but it rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up. It never loses faith. It's always hopeful and endures through every